You're listening to Techsuite for the C-suite, where we bridge the gap between technology and executives.
What up, Mo? How are you doing? Thank you for coming on.
Very well. Thank you, Samuel, for inviting me.
You're welcome. I'd like you to give like a short introduction to who you are, basically like a short rundown of what you're doing, not too much. So
Cool.
how are you?
Yeah. So I'm Mo. I'm a software and product engineer. Right now, most days you'll find me building software with Chavas and soon to be launching Scout Game, which there'll be more about that if you're on Warpcast. But overall, my thing is building systems, connecting data, and just making that really accessible to other developers. And then just like figuring out on a daily basis how I could use AI in my daily life, in my work life, in all sort of areas. And so, yeah, I'm just really excited about being in Web3. I love the vibes. I love the people that we work with. And I'm looking forward to having this chat with you.
The personal AI part to me is interesting because like as a developer, we know a bunch of the developer tools. Especially also the news had a lot of developer AI tools, be it Claude or Cursor now or ChatGPT. Like if one is following just a little bit, one likely knows that those three exist and that AI can write code quite well. If you go into the details where it actually, as you do, connects data, well, if you already have predefined details, documentation, and schemas, and everything is properly laid out, it is quite good at that. Otherwise, I'm saying like it's not perfect. But the personal life is there's even less structure in the data, right?
So I would say, like, from a just business perspective, just like, I know we're going to talk about blockchain later, but just if we're talking about the code generation thing, and there's a lot more nuance to it. But my overall view of that is if your job is to take a Jira ticket, code that with no critical sense and just basically transform what the project manager wants into code, AIs are getting pretty good at that. We're talking about very small, discrete tasks, right? Where it gets interesting is that if you're in areas where, okay, here's kind of what we want to achieve, maybe some mock-ups, maybe some specs, but just here's the general outcome you want to deliver to the user. At that point, as software engineer, you have a lot more discretion. So yes, there are some product decisions that happen, but the reality is that when you're building software, there's also hundreds and thousands, much more fractal microscale decisions that you're making about how to structure certain things. And so that requires a lot of critical thinking, of product empathy, customer empathy, product knowledge that you can't really just like pass off to an AI. And so I saw a really good heuristic for this recently, which was this kind of like, well, if you're like 1x developer, let's say, and we all like to think we're 10x developers, but so let's say if you're 0.2x, big corp developer, like writing Java and not really much critical sense, it's not going to go well for you. If you're working in environments where there's a lot of agility, a lot of uncertainty, and you need to ship a lot of things, AI becomes a multiplier. So something super dumb, right? But let's say like recently, I need to write like some kind of function just to take some information and convert that into a different information and like, check some data in the middle. That could take me, half an hour, a couple of hours just to make sure I get everything right. But with AI, that method is now like literally 10 to 20 seconds of chat GPT, right? And so my value as a software engineer and competitiveness in the marketplace is no longer like, yeah, do you know how to write this particular language? Do you have like 15 years of experience in TypeScript, even though I think it's only like 10 years old? It's like, no, do you understand what we want to build? Can you put together multiple different parts of the stack? And can you get us there? And so ultimately, like, this is like more longer term, the software engineer really becomes more of a product engineer and, goes from just like writing code to like a more project manager position. And so I'll just give a very simple mental heuristic is that usually like, pre-AI era, I want to add this button on the site that sends people an email, right? So it's like, well, okay, I need to find how to do the button. I need to connect to the email. Now, like I'm stuck into the configuring the email stuff for like a day because there's some obscure parameter that I need, right? So now with AI, I can get a lot of tasks done faster, get a lot more unblocked and understand things. And so instead of like going always down to this implementation execution level, I'm able to spend a lot more time at the where do I want to go level, what am I doing, what am I doing it, and get through a lot more product iterations.
Have you felt that you lost control in that, or is it fine for you? Because for me, sometimes I feel like, wait, what did the AI actually do? Is it proper? And then you just have to read through and understand what it has done again, even though it may be working, but maybe a little slow, or at times there's like just a general read through because the method or the function is really that critical.
So I think with AI, like the prejudice a lot of people have, and actually this problem already exists. It's called Stack Overflow. So there's two types of developers. The ones that just like copy paste from Stack Overflow, and sometimes we've done that all when we've been like maybe very delayed on a project. That's fine. But let's say the ones that just like copy paste blindly from Stack Overflow with no search for understanding of what they're copying. Like, yes, you have the solution, but how did the solution come about? What are its core components? How do you understand from first principles so the next time you're not stuck again, right? And then the second one is trying to understand. So same with ChatGPT. You cannot just say, okay, we're going to replace all our developers with AI and let ChatGPT loose on your code base. You got to think of it more like, let's say that, instead of like being a construction worker, let's say a developer was a construction worker, you're now the foreman, right? And the AI is now doing the construction for you. You're not just going to let it randomly build stuff. You're still going to go check the outputs, make sure it has context of what needs to get done, and make sure that the results fits within what you are looking for. And so that's very important. It's having this human control layer. It's like you just need to think of it as like a very intelligent employee who can get a bit carried away in the wrong direction. And so you need to check whether their outputs make sense.
Yeah, from a business perspective, it's a lot more code review and, so to say, like developer leads. So like lead developers who usually spend more time on project on like reviews of merges into your code base and making sure that the quality stays high compared to more junior or like 3-4 years at the company type of engineers that just know the code base but don't really have the overall vision and the quality of that nailed down because they just haven't been there that long.
Yeah, exactly, right? So if you think of like software, let's say as like let's just think of like an abstract software, right? That gets a specific job done for the customer. To get that job done, you need to go through 3 or 4 boxes, and each of these boxes is what you want. It's like an interface, a screen. It's just these abstract boxes that we need to get from A to B to C to D, right? So now the change is that basically instead of like spending time just stuck inside one box and trying to build that box, you really want to get more ownership around what problem are we solving, what are we fixing, and then bring those in. And so, yeah, at that point, you just unlock huge productivity gains because now like you're focusing all your bandwidth on what you want to get done. Some things, you just got to do them manually. It'll take longer to tell ChatGPT what you want to do than actually do them yourself. That's fine. But if you understand that this is like, not give me the entire done project, but it's a very iterative process. And like, there's this expression in software called rubber ducking. It's like when you have like a bug, you just like get a rubber duck on your office and just like talk to this rubber duck. And then like through the process of talking, you'll figure out what the issue is.
Yep.
That is for me the role that AI plays with developers. It's basically like a partner that we talk with, that we talk through things with. And so it may help me like figure out a design. Because it's not just about the code. It's like thinking through alternatives, thinking how I'm approaching things, learning about new topics, understanding gotchas that I'm not aware of. And so I find that sometimes actually I did not get the answer from ChatGPT, but by going through this inquisitive process of discussion and thinking, I came out with a better understanding that enabled me to ask the right question to get the right response.
Yeah, no, that checks out. For me, it's like same thing when talking to people about like blockchain projects because they're like, okay, like I heard about Bitcoin, and then mostly the buck stops, or maybe they've heard about Ethereum at most. And then, well, okay, how do you actually go deeper? What is this thing even? What is smart contracts? And then you just talk people through it. And by that, they actually always come up with the use cases themselves. Whereas typically as a consultant, you'd say, well, okay, yeah, we have this product. So your first thing is ideation. Let's come up with ideas. Usually a client is like, oh, we just want to do something here, or we have a problem. We think this can solve it. How? But by talking through it, they always tell you how they should solve it. They just haven't realized that they told you yet. So I feel like that is the similar to how AI works and what you've described in the development workflow.
Hello, Samuel. I'm sorry we got cut off there. I
Yep,
received a call on my phone and it cut off, so I've just put in do not disturb so that doesn't happen again. Hopefully.
you're good. You're back. Welcome back.
How's that? Hopefully, you can cut out the little interruption parts. My bad.
Yes.
So sorry, you were
No,
saying.
I was saying like the blockchain part and just explaining it to somebody and talking people through, they come up with a solution for you instead of you coming up with the solution for them.
Yeah. So I love that actually, right? It's all about this iterative discussion approach. And talking about blockchain, right? So I think like, quite a couple of years ago, everybody wants to do a blockchain project. Like blockchain in 2015, 2016, 2017 was like AI in 2023, 24. It's like, we've got to do a project so that we're doing something in the space. Yeah. But really you say, okay, like what's the actual use case? Like why am I using the technology? And you come to realize that like technology is good, but it's like a tool, right? It's like, hey, you have a hammer, but do you actually have any nails around you that you need to take care of? And so I think like one thing I'm really excited about blockchain, like for example, you have something like Ethereum attestation service, right? That allows you to certify things on chain from your identity. So let's say that I want to certify that a certain document was true at a certain date. I do not need to post that document on chain. And in fact, it's preferable for that to stay in a private database owned by my cloud provider or by myself. Just, having control over that data. But what I do want to do is to put a hash of that document on chain in an immutable way that is not controlled by me. That if I were, for example, to need to rely on that later on in court, I could prove, hey, at this particular point in time, this document was unchanged, and here's the hash, and here's how we can reproduce that. So that's one thing. You look at DeFi as well. I'm super, excited and interested in DeFi because if you think about it from the banking perspective, right? So,
So
by the
for
way,
for everyone unaware, DeFi means decentralized finance, which means just having finance in a way that it's done on the blockchain, because the blockchain itself is a bunch of computers just all over the world spread out doing the same computation and verifying that it's correct, which is where the decentralized part in that DeFi, decentralized finance, comes from.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for reminding us. There's a lot of acronyms in our industry, so it can be easier for it to be. So one thing I love about DeFi, decentralized finance, is that the financial infrastructure is on-chain and it's accessible. And so kind of to give you a parallel about this, in the, let's say, normal Web2 world, which is still most of industry and business today, if I want to take payments on my website, you're going to pay me. I'm probably going to do something like Stripe to accept your card.
Yes.
Visa is going to, handle the money transaction. Stripe is going to have the merchant acquirer bank deal on the other end. That money is going to get debited from my account. Those accounts have, those banks have their own accounts with either tier one banks or directly with the central bank. And basically, there's like so many layers between me and the core of the financial infrastructure system. If you look at investments and trading, right? If I want to have access to the New York Stock Exchange, that is quite difficult, right? Like if I want to see what are the actual trades that are happening, who's making the trade, I need to be in big liquidity pools with other providers and even then that's fragmented. Now, in contrast, what's very interesting with blockchain is that literally all the trade data is on chain. So if somebody bought 1 cent of some random token, that's visible. If somebody did a deal for $1 million or 10 million or 100 million, that's still visible, right? And so I'm not saying go and like invest in random coins online and all this thing, but what is really interesting is that the payment rails are accessible to any person. The data is accessible, and so you can now start executing financial transactions on chain manually, programmatically, etc. You basically have access directly to the financial network, which also creates issues. We've seen a lot of hacks and many organizations losing millions of dollars. But it's very interesting.
Those hacks for me are basically engineers not doing their job right. where some problems will always occur, though. When you're writing smart contracts, you're writing financial infrastructure, you know the volumes, or you can likely estimate the volumes that are going through them or potentially going through them. So you know that once something breaks, because it is that open, everyone will notice that it breaks. If something breaks at the New York Stock Exchange tomorrow, they're rolling it back and they're replaying whatever happened as best as they can. That will not happen on a blockchain because, as we said, it's like this network of computers all over the world. So unless you get everyone else to also chime in and change just for you, not going to happen. So you're dumbfounded there. And just to add to the on-chain and data being accessible part that you said, it's like, well, yes, if you are one of those computers, which anyone can be, you have full access to that data and you can pay providers that run those computers for you. If you're a business that isn't a full-on IT company that wants to run all of that infrastructure, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think ultimately, so you mentioned something very important there. It's that the engineers didn't do their job. That's the difference here. It's that in a bank, you have legal review, compliance review, so many layers of review. And then like either something goes wrong, potentially you can still talk to the exchange to roll things back. Within the world of blockchain, it's literally like the law is the code. Like whatever you wrote, that's it. And you have to be responsible for your asset. So yes, now there's a bunch of providers emerging that want to offer you the ability to recover your assets, recover keys, but it's just like a completely different paradigm, which is very peer-to-peer. But anyway, like moving away from DeFi, I think I'm just really interested overall for the composability aspects of blockchain, right? Because let's say like you have a company and you offer some form of API, which is application programming interface. So a way for people to get their apps, talk to your apps without any human intervention. That is like one integration. And so you're going to have to integrate with every other company out there, integrate with their API, make sure their infrastructure is actually up and running. Whereas what's really beautiful with the blockchain from an application perspective is the composability. So once an app lives there, any other app can interact with the application. So, for example, you could deploy a very simple app that now has access to USDC, digital dollar on the chain. It has access to Uniswap, which is on-chain exchange of different currencies. It even has access to EAS, Ethereum Attestation Service, which is an identity service that I mentioned, right? And so it's really interesting that basically the infrastructure layer is not even a question. Like the chain runs, handles data, handles transactions, handles execution. The apps emerge. And so I think that's really interesting. We're kind of entering this era. And if you look at like technology and software product in the last decades, it was a highly capital intensive initiative. So you needed like, for example, you needed just like the money to buy servers, physical servers. You needed to like pay the people that will manage those servers physically, pay the people that will do like the IT and sysadmin for that server. Now I can go on Amazon and like for 20 cents an hour, get a pretty decent server that runs with the full Amazon staff taking care of things for me. And same for the software, right? I had to have like all this infrastructure, like all this base layer, so like the software that you need to build so that you can actually build the software that you want to build.
Yeah.
Right? And that was a huge capital investment. But now, like in the last 10, 15 years, you had the maturation of the ecosystems, like mainly the JavaScript ecosystem, which I think has been single-handedly responsible for the biggest explosion of developers like in the world. Like we had many other languages, but I think that was really, that combined with a widely accessible knowledge on the internet, what really contributed to a lot of developers coming around. It's just made it super accessible to build an app. And so you even have, some of these big Silicon Valley thought leaders saying, basically the era of the 1 person or 10-person billion-dollar company is around the corner, right? Because so many things have been commoditized.
There. If you look at Webcast, and Merkle Manufactory, the team building Farcaster and Webcast, which is like a more decentralized social media platform with some crypto rails built in. They're just 14 people right now, and they're valued at around 1 to 2 billion right now, depending if how many secondaries you count, whatever. But the actual raise was 150 at 1 billion. So there are 14 people they also have a huge track record, and what they're building is really cool. But just any team that raises at hopefully $1 billion valuation has a good track record and a cool product, right? Otherwise, we have other economical issues potentially if those races keep going on. But for me, what's interesting when you're talking to anyone has access to it, it's like an open API, but you can also do access control there. So you can still do all of the private stuff and control who has access to it, though the data itself, if not encrypted, is public, as we said before, because it's on chain. So one thing we did with people where the data shouldn't be public is we just encrypted it. But then the problem we have is because it's still public, I can just store it and wait until your encryption is too bad. So there's a lot of stuff you have to think about and think through. So that's like some of the trade-offs to blockchain. For you, like what's the biggest trade-off, positive and negative, in blockchains to you?
I think, there's many different views of this. I think blockchain is really good for interactions. It's really good as a way of capturing interactions that have some form of value to you, right? So basically, like, we're talking about DeFi. It doesn't have to be like swapping thousands or millions of dollars for other tokens. It's maybe just like, microtransactions of payments of things that you've done, right? Like earning a couple cents, couple dollars here and there. It's adding some fluid way, basically, for financial value transfers to occur on a very fractalized, repetitive basis. And so, for example, that can be financial reputation, like EAS, right? You can create a credential that attests to the veracity of some information on-chain on optimism for literal sense and even sub-sense, right? So I think that is basically like, it's something that's good when you want to capture things that are of value to you.
Yes.
And I think it works really well when you pair it with a private, old school Postgres database that has your schemas, your business information. Like, you do not need to take your business and put all of that on chain. But what you want to figure out is, what is our on-chain interface? What opportunities on chain do we want to gain access to? And then at that point in time, okay, you can start like making that bridge. But, ultimately, like, if you don't have, like, blockchain is only useful if you have actually something of value to do on it or from it.
Yeah.
You don't just do a blockchain project
For me, there's two ways to think about it. Do you already want to interact with something that just exists on the blockchain, and so therefore you are already forced to do the integration? Well, if you are, then you're already doing blockchain integration, so you have to use it. The other thing where you want to use it is, well, do you actually just want to send money around easily and programmatically? Okay, then blockchain becomes interesting because it's just way cheaper than any bank, and you do not have to come up with the bank infrastructure. You still have to do some of the security stuff. So if Stripe or whoever already does payment processing for you via API, you may not need it. But if you want to minimize trust, like you said before with your document that you want to verify in court that it's still the same document later, well, if you just have that document somewhere, nobody knows if it's tampered with. If you post a verification of the state of the document at a certain point in time in the past to the blockchain, well, people are going to trust that the blockchain hasn't altered it because they can prove it themselves that it hasn't been altered. So if you can then prove yourself that the document you have is that same document, you're good. Nobody has to trust you. They can verify it, right? It's like don't trust, verify is the thing that it becomes. And if you do not need that trust minimization, blockchain is not that interesting. Like you said, you can just spin up an API and do that integration. But if you want anyone to be able to integrate and not have to trust you, then it's fun.
Yeah. I mean, people talk a lot about trustlessness in blockchains, and it is true, right? Like, you don't, like, in the normal not on chain world, let's say you have a contract with someone. If you want to enforce that, you're going to depend on the goodwill of both parties to adhere to the contract. If that doesn't work, then you're going to have to do arbitration. Or if that doesn't work, you're going to have to go to court and hope in the legal system that works, right? So
Yes.
Ultimately, it's just nice if you can enforce everything on chain. But what's even better than that is just like being careful who you're entering into contracts with and who you're dealing with.
Yeah, that's
so-
but let's like the first law of business is choose your partners wisely.
Right. So you might, for example, like, so let's say, I don't know, let's say like I have an insurance company, right? And I do a deal with you to like provide me reinsurance, which it's a very niche thing in insurance. I learned this many years ago, but like insurers have their own insurers. And that's because like, if, an insurer is like basically responsible for thousands or millions of families. And if something goes wrong, and they don't have the funds, all those people are screwed, right? So the reinsurance industry is big pools of capital that provide insurance to the insurers, right? So we might have a deal between us whereby basically it's like, well, if a Category 5 hurricane happens in this particular area, you're going to give me $1 billion. So I trust you, I like you, but it's good if the mechanism for enforcing that is already automated and staked. So there's no, there's no legalities or messing around.
Yeah.
Right.
And that way, if you have multiple people, multiple services putting that data into the blockchain, you're like, okay, one of them is going to be honest and you'll be able to notice because there's divergence in data. And if you then add financial incentives to be like, well, okay, if you're not honest, you're actually not getting paid, then they all want to be honest. And if you go even further, which is the system of proof of stake, they all put up a collateral. So if they lie, some of that collateral gets stolen from them or like transferred to the people that were honest. Well, now all of a sudden, nobody really wants to lie unless the financial value is greater than the amount that they have at stake and what they could lose, so to say, which by then the value of the thing that they're proving, if that goes up, the overall stake goes up, because otherwise there would be this arbitrage to be made. And the interest in having that be verifiable then also goes up, which means more people want to have their money in there, and that's how that works. In general, we've talked a lot about this like blockchain stuff, but is there like a cool explanation you have that you always go with? Like if somebody has no experience before that, how do you actually explain blockchain?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. There's so many ways to explain it. So I think like a simple way to explain blockchain that really touches the essentials. I think it's a permissionless way for people to transact, to interact with each other, and to execute and enforce contractual agreements between each other. On the more meta level, like you could say that it's just basically like rather than relying on one company to tell you what is the truth, you have now a base foundation layer where everybody agrees what the truth is, and you can't really mess with that. And so that allows you to not have to trust people, but you also trust the system that your transactions have value, the data has value, and just in general that the information being given is correct.
And here with the system, we do not mean any legal jurisdiction or financial system. It is just pure code, cryptography, and therefore verifiable math. Meaning like you're basically trusting the laws of math, which are based on the laws of physics. So unless there's a breakthrough in physics that's going to break these, quantum physics could be one of them, but then you just change the cryptography used, then we're already trusting that system, right? So those are the foundations that it's built upon. Which to me is super interesting.
I think another way to say, I just thought about it, is like it's a computer in the cloud that everybody can modify, but nobody controls.
That's a good one. That's a good one, because that also hits the essence of, well, if we all had cloud providers, we can't really trust them because technically they could run whatever. What guarantee do they provide us? The only thing why we trust them is because it would ruin their reputation more, and then they would lose money. Whereas here, we do not have to trust them because we can run it ourselves, verify it, and everyone is using it, and verifying it also by using it.
So I think it's like, looking at some of the business aspects of blockchain, we talked about, this openness, this access. You look at the previous generation of companies, and I'm saying like previous because I really do believe that in the last 10 years, we've entered like an accelerating phase of change, and this has been even more manifest in the last few years. We really are at a tipping civilizational point for like, socially, economically, like how business runs. And it's just going to take a little while to catch up everywhere, right? But if you look at the blockchain and look at previous companies, so a lot of companies, what they will do, the reason they kind of had their defensibility and moat was because they just like had the data. That's it. It's a walled garden. They have the data.
Yep.
You don't have the data done. You can't really go in, right? So that's kind of a competitive advantage. Now you look at modern companies. I'm saying modern, just like companies from this stage in Farcaster. What it's really about is the UX. So the data is accessible, sure, but the data is accessible. All that means is I can go online and look at a random bunch of strings of zeros, A's, ones, E's, like hexadecimal strings that mean nothing to me. Like, just because the data is open, it doesn't mean that it's accessible. And so there's like a big job in like curating, like figuring out, first of all, what application does my user need, right? Because it's just like a computer. You could have, I'm sure that even just like your computer and my computer have very different apps on them, very different setup, and they work for each of us in our own personal ways based on our needs, right? And so the same about the blockchain, it's like this is big computer, but how do you make it work for a specific group of people? You know, like one blockchain does not serve the same needs for every particular user. And so really the competition, I think, happens at the application layer. And so you look at Farcaster, actually where, you know, we've had a number of interactions, it's okay. So the data is accessible, like, sorry, the data is open. Farcaster provides access to you, to that data via the official Warpcast application. Other clients can still come along. They can still like interact with the cast, with the data, but it's like, well, okay, but like if I want to hang out with my friends online, Warpcast feels to me like a good place to go. You know, like it's really good
for actual, like for other people, there are apps that are greater because maybe their English isn't good enough, and then Warpcast is too English. That's where like other clients come in that are more focused on those languages. I know that for a fact that there's a Chinese client that is quite large. There is a client that has translations built in. So that's interesting there. And they're taking the same data, but making it accessible to people outside of the English-speaking countries.
Yeah, and so this is I think the key thing about Eero, which I'm really interested in as a product builder, like someone who's like loves to ship stuff and make stuff. We have so much technology available to us now that we can actually focus on the application layer rather than all the things underneath it, right? And so I'll give you like a very simple example. We were talking about AI earlier. So a couple of years ago, let's say you wanted to just like detect, like let's say you're having like some forum and you want to detect which posts are positive, which posts are negative. You would have to build something called a classifier, which is like basically like a AI that is specialized in detecting if something is positive or negative. Now that might take you like a couple of months, like set up the team, run inference. Like I'm assuming you're not getting like a SaaS provider that does this, right? So I'm just saying like if you want to have this actual capability, or even with a provider, they're going to charge you quite a pretty penny, right? Like basically it's going to be quite a cost, either OPEX or CAPEX. Now we're in an era where I can make one request via an API, so my program can talk to ChatGPT, not even me, and just say, is this positive or negative? And I'm going to get a response back for like, not even, this is like sub-cents, like not even 1 cent. That's the transformational era we're in. It's like we can build so much more.
Well, I saw numbers on this just a week ago meaning end of 2024, where 1,000 replies on social media that are AI generated cost below $5.
Yeah, which raises the whole other problem of, are we going to end up on the internet only talking to other bots and then never finding any humans? Hopefully not. At least that's not the vibe they get on Warpcast. I think, again, they have a pretty good anti-bots algorithm
They're filtering
there
a
to
lot.
help filter things out.
I'm sometimes looking at the raw data that is underneath on Farcaster itself, where everyone can just post and whatever. And that paints a pretty picture of how much spam there actually is. And there will be more as it grows. And Twitter as well does a good job of hiding this. Instagram with comments, like they all try. But it's not an easy problem because some people, if their English isn't that well, then the non-sophisticated speakers look sometimes like bots. And then how does that work? What are the social clusters between them? Do you then take interactions with each other into account? Do you then also take into account that maybe if there's no interaction, it's spam, but in another social set, there's a lot of interaction, so that user generally is spammy in all social sectors besides the one where they really like them. Could be bots within each other or people with a general style and humor that basically no one else appreciates besides them. So those are all the spam algorithm problems that you get from there.
Yeah, but that's a great example, right? So it's like all the data is available for all the posts. It's an open fire hose of information. How do you aggregate and curate that in a way that when I open this app, that, you know, this client that's consuming this information, I have a good time and a good experience? And so at that point, it's not the competition is not on who has the data about the posts. It's who can make the best UI for interacting with all these posts and the best algorithm to surface the content that I will find relevant and enjoyable, whilst not locking me into a bubble, because we do also have that information bubble issue that you have with other social networks, which you end up just like seeing a certain type of content very specifically and kind of like reinforces you in your views.
Yep. I just believe that when Dan Romero, one of the founders of Farcaster, talks about their spam filter, he's saying, well, our spam filter and algorithm is when you open the app, it has to be pleasant right away. And most people do not spend more than 10 minutes at a time, if at all. So they have to optimize for these 10 minutes. And if that's once a day, then this is like the general, okay, we're going to catch 90%, 99% of people with a good experience. And then there's going to be a whole lot of other people that have issues with that because either they're way longer, or they have a different need. And then because it's open, they can just pick another solution. They'll get mad. And I also sometimes get mad when it's like, oh, just build your own solution. Everything's open. Because I feel like some of the criticism could be valid, others isn't, and then you have to make those decisions. But you can make those trade-offs, right? If I open Twitter today or Instagram today, I'm in no position to make any kind of suggestions or trade-offs.
So what do you mean suggesting a trade-off to the owners of these companies, or?
Well, first of all that. Second of all, there is no way, if I were to disagree, to just have my own solution be there and work.
Yeah. No, that's true. But I mean, at the end of the day, these companies have so people that say like, on-chain is going to replace everything. I think it's going to unlock a whole bunch of use cases and new economic things that we're not aware of. It's going to, yes, replace some companies, but still, I think we'd be wise to acknowledge, and maybe because we're Europeans, but that humanity just has a certain way of staying on with the things that work. And so, although we have our bubble of technologists and, we're like, yes, everything is going to be awesome, it's all new. I think there's like a fundamental reality that many of these things may take many years to come along. That said, at the same time, what I'm going to be particularly interested in, look, this is like tech, I guess more just like social observation, which is, it's going to be very interesting to see how our society adapts to the widespread distribution of AI in our society. And the reason is because like right now we focus a lot on like preserving jobs, but what happens when the final frontier has been breached, and then cognitive work is essentially something that's no longer like widely required?
I do think that there will be a lot of cognitive work that will be required. You may not think of it as work today. The example that I always like to pick there is, we used to be farmers.
Yeah.
Now we're not. We then used to be industrial machines. And I phrased that willingly and meticulously in the way that I said industrial machines, because, well, we were just plugged in where now we have machines. And then we went on to be knowledge workers, most of the people. And maybe in the future, we're not just all going to be office slaves doing tedious tasks for some of the high elite, super productive knowledge workers, because they require that assistance and they have an AI. So where are we moving to? We're already seeing a bunch more content creators, meaning like humans interacting with each other humans just to cheer on other humans and having value there, because we freed up that much time that now everyone can run their own circus program. We just call it differently. In Rome, you may have called that circus. In the Middle Ages, you would have called that theater or a Casper. Then later on, it used to be a cinema. Then it became television. Now it's social media. But we freed up so much time that you could spend your whole day just watching these and still be good. And if you only have to make money one day a week or less, depending on how you coordinate socially, that is interesting. And then we're moving potentially into an era where everyone is a creator for 1,000 fans, and that's just how it works. And some will transcend this, others not. And then maybe everyone is just hustling to be a creator. Maybe there's other things coming up that most likely there are other things coming up that will just be the new thing that everyone tries to do. And then there's status games in between people, because some want to be the best, some just want to survive. And the interfall and outfalls of those are interesting.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting if, like, a lot of people are sort of living today just to work and survive, and they don't really have the space to think about, what do I want to create? What do I want to do? So it'll be interesting to see, like, can we unlock for a whole bunch of humanity the ability to actually focus on where they want to go and what they want to be and who they want to do. But, these are more like social political concerns. The French and half French love to talk about this all day long. We don't do much about it.
You go on strike when your ability to just live off the state is threatened.
But that's the great thing about AI. It never goes on strike. So I think, like,
Wait, you mean the AI is going to replace all of the French?
I wish it would do that, at least for, like, so. We're kind of getting into another topic here, but France has the highest level of GDP. Prélèvement. I don't know what the word is in English. Like, basically, out of every $1 that happens in the GDP in France, 56 cents of that goes to the French government, right?
Oh, the highest take rate of the GDP?
Take rate, yeah. So, like, literally, like, over half of the money generated on a yearly basis in the country goes to the government, right? That's just, like, not efficient. There's so many paper processes, like, people that are just, like, doing jobs that are copies of other jobs. Like, our health service has 33% of administrators, i.e. not doctors or nurses. So I think, like, ultimately, like, if you look at business, right, and the general, like, distribution of labor, I think what happens is that you're gonna have good managers have a lot of value, because good managers, like, we have this, there's this, like, social media, like, the manager that's, like, sitting there and telling people what to do. Actually, no, like, great managers, they keep this vision of, like, where do we want to go? What are our capabilities? And it's kind of like, an orchestra conductor, just, like, keeping everybody humming along so we get in the right direction and we go to a good symphony. But there's also a lot of managers that don't really deliver much value. And so I think ultimately what you're going to find is in the corporate structures, and this is in, like, if the company is, if we're putting aside the fact that, yes, we have, like, political status games and, the fact that sometimes things are the way they are, not because of rational reason, but because of attachment to emotional, social considerations. Yes, I'm aware of these realities, that they exist, right? But let's say that you want to be a bit more like American in your mindset and be like, okay, that's all nice, but we're here to get rich. We're here to, like, be successful in business, right? So how do we do that? Well, we just, like, actually go through and, like, figure out where's the value in our workforce. And so I think the transformation you're going to see that is you're going to have, like, the line level employees who are going to start becoming a lot more valuable. So I do think there will be, like, job losses at the line level. And you look at a factory, they used to be filled with workers. Now you can basically have, like, 3 or 4 guys or ladies in a factory running, like, producing, like, tens or hundreds of cars a day, because it's all robots, right? And so I think, like, at the entry level, it's going to be more costly. And when I say costly, I mean in terms of effort for people, like, that want to be, like, in a full-time employment, to find a company that they can work with, because the competition is going to be higher. There's going to be less middle management, because people will be, like, more capable of doing things, of self-organizing. And so I think you're just going to see a lot more efficiency, basically. Like,
I hope that there is a lot more middle management, but talking from a European perspective, where I've watched middle management exist my whole life since I'm not that old, and I haven't lived long enough to see the days of the rebuild after World War II. The humans want middle management, because you want to always, like, or at least, like, some people want to be able to go up one position higher and lift the burden, meaning literally take the burden, lift it up one floor. So it's like, now your manager's problem, not yours anymore. Then they give it up again until there's nobody left, and that's usually the founder, or at least some person that says, no. Actually, you have to take responsibility. It's yours, and hands it down. It's like, what you're saying is this only works, though, if the person doing the job also takes responsibility, which is a mindset shift from what we have today. Because, as you said, you have 33% administrators in a health system. Like, the doctors need to be there, and the doctors just have to have a schedule managed. Like, that's all, right?
no, that's the point. Is that, so I think to refine what I was saying, so less middle managers, but that's really because the line level people also start becoming more managerial. But what that means as well is that, like, and again, so the reason so there's kind of like, you can think about this in two ways, right? Think about a company like a bubble that is kind of like exists in the economy and it's stable and it's fine. Great. But if you're like in a globalized competitive environment, now you have a new driver, which is like, if you want to stay alive and grow, we have to be better than others. How do we do that? By increasing our revenue and cutting our costs. And so really then it's like, okay, well, I have like 5 people in my team. Of those 5 people, it's actually like 3 that are delivering most value. And actually, if I had like better tools and support for them, they would deliver even more value at less cost. And so I think this is, we come back to the manager, right? So maybe what I was saying was actually, now that I'm thinking about talking with you, is not the entire truth. It's not so much like much less middle managers. It's maybe that managers manage smaller teams. Because for the same, and again, I'm leaving out the part where people love to hire people so they can feel more important and have like a bigger headcount. Right? Like,
there's going to have to be socioeconomic changes and psychological changes in all of that to even work and get close to it.
Right. But it's kind of like, you know, as a manager now, it's like, okay, well, even think about it as a manager, right? Let's say your outcomes driven, you have a certain target. If you can reach this target with 3 people, who, by the way, are not burned out, they're taking their holidays, they're doing everything, they're having a life, and they're providing value for you. Like, would you prefer to reach the same outcome to have 3 people or to have 5 people? It's like 40% less issues to manage.
Yeah, it's like if you look about like at distributed systems and how communication works the same way, because systems and computers also just communicate. Funnily enough, we call it communication protocols or network. If you're in IT. And then what ends up happening is if I have to talk to 5 people and all of us have to synchronize, then depending on how we synchronize, if we all just have to actually talk to each other instead of just talking to one central thing and then pulling it from the central thing, you now have each one of those 5 people interconnect and talk to all of each other, which is a lot of overhead. If you only have 3 talking to each other, there's a lot less communication going on because I only have to talk to 2 people. The other people also only have to talk to 2 people instead of each one has to talk to 4. So you can do the probabilities theory and the I'm not sure the
combinatorial,
combinatorial stuff to figure out how many conversations you would need to have to be on the same page here. If you don't all get into the same room and then we're talking about remote work and challenges of that, or even just all being in the same page, having the same conversation, hearing every point of view, right? Which then you have the sync over it again. So I think that is really interesting. And going from AI, you said that you're using personal AI a lot, and you try to also optimize in the personal life. Like, how do you do that? Because there's a lot less structured data, and the personal life is a lot more, dare I say, chaotic than the business life, even though for some people it may not feel like that, but from a data perspective, it surely is.
Yeah, so I've used it. So I just use it as kind of like a companion in my day-to-day life to help me figure out things. So it's like, okay, what am I going to eat tonight? So just for me, some healthy meals. Here's what I have in my fridge. I'm going shopping. Here's everything I need to buy. Please reorganize everything into groups, which will make it most likely that I find these groups in the same area of the store. My daughter is going to go to sleep, and this is a real thing. So I've made ChatGPT sing to her a good night lullaby in Egyptian Arabic, and it works pretty well. I had one of my family members that I was trying. They were quite advanced in age, and so I wanted to explain to them about things that I'm working on. There was a bit of a language barrier. So I just told ChatGPT, hey, ChatGPT, please explain this in this language. And it did it really well, much better than I could have. So they're just all these small things. And there's other ideas I have kind of later on. Ultimately my dream, so I know people have very different views on this. My dream would be to be fully merged with the AI. Did you ever play Mass Effect?
No.
Okay. It's one of the, I don't have huge time for gaming these days. I have a PlayStation, which I never touch. But Mass Effect is like a very cool space opera game, and at the end of it, there's basically like 3 choices once you get to the end. So spoiler alert, if anybody was going to get into that. Basically, you can destroy the AI, take over the AI, or merge with the AI. That's kind of like the 3 endings. And
Yep.
so for me, like just in general, I'm a big merge with the AI because I just see it as like the next level of our species. And if you just think about it from a pure game theory perspective, right? Let's say in 20, 30 years, so for example, Neuralink, right? So you look at Neuralink, that's a way for you to like basically connect your mind to the machine, which really is just providing an interface that's much higher bandwidth than your fingers on a keyboard or your voice on a
Yes.
audio processing, right? So let's just think about it as humanity. There's 1 million humans that have this AI integrated in their brain, and that AI controls other AIs and can do things for them. And then there's like humans that don't have that. Tell me like a single competition, apart from maybe like an athletics competition, but something that involves like knowledge work, that human could not win. Supposing that they are of like, decent intelligence and they're having like experience in their field. So this way, the comparison, let's say it's like, a software developer with this against the software developers that don't have this. So
Yeah, like even if the AI is starting to do some weird stuff, because you already have some experience, you're able to say, "Oh no, this sounds stupid. Please redo it in another way," and then you have those conversations and you come up with a good solution.
yeah. So they need like the kill switch, all that stuff. That's fine. Like things to like, save things, but that's all AI safety. There's people spending billions of dollars to research that.
Yeah, no,
But
what I'm talking
overall,
about is like the AI being like, well, okay, here is a solution, and you, because you have some knowledge, know, okay, that solution is just too basic. Please refine it. Go through that path.
so actually, that's something as well to think about. So if you think about AI, it's like if you don't know much about something, the impact is incremental. So what that means is that it gets you from 0 to 1 a lot faster than just like the brute effort,
Yeah, yeah,
So I would have spent maybe like 8 hours trying to understand something. Now, within like maybe 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, because I took the time to do some reading and understanding, I have the same level of understanding, right? That's incremental. But now, let's think about the multiplicative aspect. It's like, well, let's say I have 8 hours in a day to build software. If 4 of those hours are wasted on pure documentation or some obscure bug, that's like super sucks. But now if I could solve that in like 5 minutes, I have 3 hours and 55 to work on high leverage things, which really like I'm delivering value to sort of like thought, process, thinking, etc., etc.
yeah. What I'm thinking of there is, well, how do you take that interface into also like coordination and automation? Because for me at least now, like running a business, there's a lot of hats that I have on, where AI could potentially do some of them, but building out the integrations and all of that means I do not get to wear one of those hats. So then I have an integrator's hat, and if that integration doesn't really work right away, then I just spend a bunch of time on that. So you have to have like a lot of free resources, or at least like some free resource to explore all of that, and then be able to automate or make a decision. Uh,
So
is there
I
like
do have
something that you use?
I do have a thesis on that. Like I have like some personal tooling that I'm kind of evolving over time. So I'll talk about that on podcast one day. But I can tell you kind of the general philosophical approach. Think of yourself as a human as 3 layers, sort of like in a company actually. There's the executive, the management, and the worker, right? So you human as an executive is basically you saying, okay, like these are my goals, these are what I would like to do, this is what I'd like to be. And literally in neuroscience, we call that executive function, the ability to plan for the future and to make decisions to control what you're doing, right? That tails into the second level, which is management. So what is management? It's taking a goal and operationalizing that whilst being, given the resources that you have. So the management layer is the bridge between what are my long-term vision, what is my short-term plan to achieve that, and then mobilizing the resources, right? And so where I see things kind of how this fits in with the human is that the human remains the executive. So the human like still says like, here's where I want to go, here's what I want to do, here are like my high level goals. You may involve an AI to like chat with it and to get feedback and to like help you brainstorm. But you're the executive. Like the AI is just there like to chat with you, but it's not doing anything. The management level is where the AI is amazing because what a computer is great at, they're great at doing things repeatedly over time, tirelessly. And so
Yeah.
where I see like the big value of the AI is going to be first of all the manager level. Some people are awesome at like managing themselves, or like super disciplined, everything. Others less. And so basically AI, if it knows your goals and it knows your context and it knows everything, now it can start formulating plans for you within the day level or within the hourly level, right? Like, okay, like let's take this abstract thing and let's map that down to like, what's our plan today? And here's everything that we have to do. Is, all those movies that you see with like the AI with a nice voice wakes up and it's like, hello, welcome, wake up. You now have 7 messages. Here's your 2 meetings. Here's what you need to do. I researched this for you, right? So that's the management level. And then the worker level, it's 2. It's you and the AI. So the AI is basically like doing certain tasks. You are doing certain tasks, right? And so that's like how I see it. And like overall, the way that this comes together is like the secret between human AI merge is context. We talk about context in ChatGPT, which is the maximum message that size you can send.
No, but to me,
But
context is like the information it has and the data it has and the awareness it has.
The philosophical meaning of the context for the human AI is so much more powerful to get right, because it's basically big context. Who am I? Where do I want to go? Medium context. Which projects am I working on today? Smaller context. Which task am I doing right now? And then wrapping back up. It's okay. Which task am I doing right now? But to which project does this relate to? What is the bigger context? So if you can like
also
seamlessly
wrapping one higher, how are those with the big alignments? How are those projects prioritized? Am I actually working on the right project and the right task? And what should I do next? What's more important? How are the deadlines? How should I prioritize? And go step after step.
Exactly. And so like you're a creator, you know how it is, like creators are creative people. And so like often as creatives, we have things that we want to do. Like we may have these moments like, oh, I'd really like to do this. And we have a strong emotional energy for it. But then like life gets in the way. We just like forget about it. But with the AI that's there, it doesn't forget about it. It's like, no, you decided that something made sense. You've committed to it. It reminds you that you need to do it. It helps you get it done. And it gives you the context of why you're doing the thing that fits into this bigger thing. And so ultimately that's like the key. The key is being able yourself and the AI to like surf this wave of context of what you want to be doing, so that you can always I have a friend of mine, I haven't spoken to her in years, but she had this watch called this watch, and you look at it, it's like, what time is it? And it only had now on the watch, right? Like, what time is it? It's now. And so I think that's the most powerful thing. It's like being able to tap into the AI and saying, okay, like, where are you right now? And like now in the sense of what task are we doing right the hell now? What does that fit in on the bigger context?
Yeah, where you blend out all of the, like you said, managerial stuff, where you're like, okay, I'm looking at my watch. This is the task that I have to do now. Get this done. Then you tell it, oh, this task is done. However, or it even sees it because you have some kind of integration there that it's done. And then it just gives you the next task, the next one, the next one. And on the big picture, you then correct, and then it auto corrects the task lists that it sends when you look at the watch, and you're like, now, that's really cool. Right now, though, what are you working on? Like, what are you up to right now?
Exactly. So, I mean, was that a question for me, or was that a question for the AI?
Yes, that's a question for you, or your AI. if you have it that interconnected, read it out.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess so. Right now, these days, I'm mainly focused on my work with Chandras. So we've been doing like a lot of stuff. I'm very privileged to join them actually, like basically at the start. Myself and one of the colleagues here, we got hired by the founding team, and the team has grown since then. I was there like from inception, and so we've basically grown over time to like the leading grants platform in Web3 space. We're applying grants for many different L2s, L1s, people in the space. So that's been like really a privilege just to be able to be there, ship products, support our customers, and just have a platform that has like serious use. Like that's the best thing for me as a software engineer, in shipping stuff that real people enjoy, that actually solves real problems.
Wait, so what do you do on weekends? You have a family or what?
Yes, I do have a family.
You don't enjoy your side projects? You don't enjoy your side projects on the weekend?
Yeah. So that's kind of like, that's what I'm doing like in Web3, with Chambers, but then yes, I enjoy spending time with my family. But really for me, I'm very focused on just like either relaxing, either learning, either building. And so really like kind of my own personal, like they say personal projects right now are all focused in the AI space. and particularly in the AI
Yeah.
operation space, because I really think it's kind of like, so people say like, okay, so maybe an artificial superintelligence suddenly comes out and it's like, cool, let's all go relax, right? But let's say that's not the case. And let's say that like the next 5, 10, 15 years are going to be an incremental adoption of this artificial intelligence throughout the world, because the future is here, but it's not evenly distributed, right? So really my thing is to say, well, if you take an elephant, how do you eat an elephant? You eat it by small pieces, bite by bite. And so the same with AI. It's like, how can I find discrete areas that I can AI-ify and then just like, build that into a loop. So I'm doing that with my life at the moment, different areas, just really kind of thinking about context. It's kind of like my main thing right now is just to be able to achieve like full context. So like I can just open my watch, click and be like, what am I doing right now? And so, that would be just like my ultimate dream basically. And then otherwise I'm just enjoying, I recently moved to Berlin, a lot of builders here, great vibes, good people. Been working too much recently to go out much, but I'm really excited to see like the
I
next months
personally
here.
don't like the vibe of Berlin, of like the general Berlin person. But I do recognize that within Germany, it's like one of the like buzzing. Well, buzzing is the wrong word for Germany and a startup environment, but it's like the more active, I'd say. It's not San Francisco or New York.
So it's not San Francisco, that's true. I wish I was San Francisco, but there's other life considerations for me. So like if I'm going to be in Europe,
feel you.
Berlin is a pretty good place to be. And again, place like Berlin is like London. It's one city, but there's 1,000 cities within that city, social circles, environments. And so for me, like, being in Web3, like being in this builders circle of people in Web3 in Berlin makes me very happy. That said, I'm sure that if I appreciate Germany, Germans, I respect you all, but I'm not sure I would have such a good experience if I moved to like Hamburg or the Stuttgart. Like, I really moved here to this city specifically for the vibes and what you find.
Yeah. No, I feel that. Having grown up in Frankfurt, there's a bunch of other cities that are way more polite than Frankfurt. Like the general outside view of Frankfurt is, oh, it's just rude, homeless people or bankers. And there's something to it. But a lot of the people there are just like straight shooters, meaning we'll just tell you how it is. If we have a bad day, you're not going to get a smiley face out of us. Like, because we have a bad day, and it's just like that. Change our mood and we will change our facial expression, but like, no, we have a bad day. Please leave us. And most people can't deal with that. And it also sometimes it isn't pleasant, but that's just how it is. Whereas I was just in Los Angeles last week, and even if somebody has the worst day, they'll smile at you. And I much prefer the directness and the full-on honesty of being able to see the person for what their situation is instead of having to go through 3 layers and try to figure it out.
It depends. I really love the German directness. That's something that's very refreshing. But at the same time, I was in the US like earlier this year. I really love the American way of like, even if somebody's like not feeling that good, you're like, how are you? And they're like, yeah, I'm good. How are you? Like I think this kind of like pretend that you're good even if you're not good. It does create a positive feedback loop.
Yes, that's what I was about to say, because there's something to it of if you just tell yourself that you're good over and over again, at some point you will believe it. The only problem is you can't be delusional. So I feel like the middle ground between like having the German directness with enough optimism, which is in a startup environment where you're in, may be actually perfect, because you have to have a lot of optimism there, but you still have the Germans around. So we'll call you bullshit. So that is most likely fun. But then also, I heard you're doing Scout Games. So what's up with Scout Games? So you're doing the grants platform on Chambers and doing all of that. Grants basically being like, I am a big project. Usually in the blockchain space, I want to attract developers, or I want to retroactively, like after the fact, reward a lot of developers that have built on my ecosystem and want to make it sustainable for them, make sure that they'll keep developing in my ecosystem. And then I give them money through that grant process. And now, but you're also doing a Scout Game. So what's that about?
Yeah, so I think just overall, that's what we're doing. That's a little what we're doing with Chambers, right? It's basically helping ecosystems grow by attracting builders. Because ultimately, it's great to have good technology. It's great to have good software. It's great to have like the best chain, whatever. But you need, as I was saying earlier, it's all about the apps. You need actual apps getting built. So we've empowered that through the grants platform by really like helping like funding neat developers that are actually building stuff. And with Scale Games, so like we're still in the early private beta, so I can't disclose too much. But yeah, basically like we're just creating a way for you to like really support the builders that you care about that are contributing to things that you enjoy. So it's sort of like fantasy, or I guess the German would be Premier League for developers. Like fantasy Premier League for developers.
Bundesliga, but still,
Bundesliga. Yes,
we don't care.
Bundesliga for...
We don't care about that Farmers League in England over there.
Yeah, so it's like
German teams over the last 2 years have fared better in the Champions League than the Premier League, but Premier League is obviously like the one big league worldwide when it comes to football. But yeah,
but like so. I mean, yeah, that's really fun. Like we've got like a bunch of contributions that we're observing, so it's going to be opening access to more people in the coming weeks. And yeah, basically we'll be like really looking to just like empower you to discover people that are building stuff that you care about and support them, and just have fun and have good vibes essentially.
This also means when this episode is coming out, this will most likely be live, so you can just Google for Scout Game and be able to check out both Charmverse and Scout Game.
Hello again. We had a little connectivity issue. Not sure why.
No, I was just saying that. I have an echo again. Not sure how.
I'm good. I'm back with the AirPods again.
Perfect. No, what I was just about to say is like Scout Game will most likely be out, so people can already have a look at it and see if they find their favorite people or contributions, or have something that they want people to contribute to. And as far as I've seen it shared, it's going to be about open source contributions, meaning that it's actually contributions to society or projects or technology that you may care about, while usually what ends up happening is that, well, as a developer, I think that I can just do it myself, and then I have a second thing. Somebody is like, oh, those two things that were created don't really solve my problem in the exact singular way that I want it solved, so I'll create a fourth thing, and third, or fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and now we have like 20 different competing solutions, where in the end only two are actually really the ones you use, or maybe one, but you can't know because it's just there. So I think that's a really cool way of making people go that one extra step to potentially coordinate and get it into the main thing, and let the main thing stay the main thing.
Yeah, and again, it's going to be like very fast moving. So just follow Scout Game XYZ on Worldcast for updates. Also myself on Worldcast, IBB, if you haven't already. Yeah, and I'm just looking forward to sharing more updates. I'm just looking forward to chatting with yourself, Samuel, as well about other topics. And overall, yeah, if anyone wants to talk about AI, on-chain things, general operationalization of life, I'm always down to chat about these topics. This is something I really care about.
That's perfect. Like as a last word, if anyone wants to look into those topics, like be it AI or blockchain, what kind of resources would you recommend them have a look at?
I would actually talk to ChatGPT and say, okay, please explain to me what is blockchain and why is it relevant in 2024? And then I would just have a discussion with it to go deeper and deeper. And so actually,
would you then also add your business context and be like your personal history, your business context that knows that, or is it just like a general?
No, so I would personalize it, but I would just ask about it in a general sense first, right? I would be hypocritical to say like I love AI, I love to operationalize it and not use it. Like look at Google actually, like they kind of like say, wow, what's happening? People aren't using Google search anymore, they're using ChatGPT. So Google search is still an amazing product. You find many things, but honestly, I would say in 2024, if you want to learn about a new topic, using something like ChatGPT is a great way to go about it, because you're going to get like a good overview. You're going to be able to like dive deeper into the information. And you're just really going to be able to follow a natural learning path that just reading some static guide written like a year ago will not be relevant for.
Perfect. No, thank you so much, Mo, for coming on.
Thank you, Samuel, for inviting me.
Thank you for watching Techsuite for the C-Suite. You can get to our lovely guest in the description. Every link to find our guest is there. Ask any questions you potentially have. Share this with a friend who really, really gets value out of this episode, and make sure to follow to not miss future episodes.